Hey, children, when you smoke, you're gonna grow up the bunny like that.
Let's get a little bit of an overview of where we are and what are we doing with the world. Let's start with the introduction of what are we doing here and what are we trying to achieve. We want to create a world that's gonna work as a space for the game, and we want it to be a part of the cartoon where we're gonna explore this world, and we will be adding new areas as we keep developing cartoon, and we will have the option to explore more of a life of characters and side characters and develop side stories within a game, because this allows for longer and different types of interactivity. So for example, if you like something, then you can explore more of a life of the characters. And the guys are not gonna be from here, they're gonna be visiting. And their first mission would be to establish the election system within this world. And this world, we are looking at a forest, but it's kind of technologically advanced. The difference between this world and the regular one is the fact that there are no humans and everything is a biotech, including things like monkeys are computers. Have you ever heard the expression monkey can do it? I think you did, and this is what we are playing with basically. We're gonna say like, all right, if the monkey can do it, and it's basically some sort of a dumb automated tasks that humans usually do, we're gonna explore, hey, can we do it in a way that mocks this type of activity and at the same time shows some sort of a computer concepts that are not as easy to show. And one of the part here is engagement with internet. And the internet would be more of a pipes type of situation. So we can see on our original plans, we have this type of pipes that are gonna go around the city. And this is where fishes are gonna swim, and they gonna use a form of telepathy basically to pass along the information. And monkeys would be the only ones who can process it, while being the only creatures in this world that are basically fully animals that have no mind of their own and cannot even have it. It would be the big thing in the world, and this is why we are saying that there are no humans here. So everybody who's gonna be here gonna have something to do. And this would be important because we want to containerize the world and have a lot on the small spaces, which means that it's very important what type of characters are living there and what are they working with. So this basically means that everybody gonna have their place and purpose here. They're gonna do something, which also means that it's gonna take quite a bit of a time to develop it, but I think this would worth it because we will have a lot of reusability out of that, because we are not just doing something that is one-off. We are developing characters that are gonna live in a game and in a cartoon, and will be largely reused in a further season because they're gonna explore one world, they're gonna explore another world, world level, and after this, eventually there will be some sort of a combination and some sort of an overlap. In addition to it being more interesting, we also have the option to actually be efficient and not waste time on something that we are not gonna use. Additionally, we are developing quite a bit of a different types of the controls to move around the characters, because I want to understand what level of platforming can be integrated into the game itself. The last point, everyone is a good guy. I don't want to have unmotivated villains that are villain because they are villain. Everybody will have their clear agenda, and no one will be just evil. They will just want to achieve their own goals, which should make the interactions more interesting. So I will explicitly forbid myself anything that has to do with just fully committing to evil. And that does not mean that there will not be fully committed to the evil characters, but they will have the reason for that. Does not mean that we will know it right away. but it will be, and it will be revealed, and it will be planned. So no unmotivated, it's villain because it's villain, that's for sure. And this is pretty much the guidance when it comes to the plot development more than anything else. Let's explore a little bit more when it comes to what the game is. What is interesting here is the fact that with Unreal Engine, we also can use NDI and transmit our characters out there and just use the character animator to project the live character when we are playing, for example, D&D type of a campaign, or we use pre-loaded animations in Flash to just like transmit them. Yeah, or maybe even transmit some sort of a live footage or something like this, or something based on web. And this introduced a lot of ideas when it comes to the production of cartoon itself. So we can use the cameras in Unreal Engine, we can use the lighting in Unreal Engine, and we can use the navigation like that to essentially set a lot of scenes right there and do the whole production pipeline that are centered around Unreal Engine as a post-production, right? So we will be developing the assets in Flash, but instead of finishing everything in the After Effects, we'll finish most of the post-production, like the shadows and the world and overlays in Unreal Engine, which will allow us to prepare the game and the cartoon at the same time, basically, and use a lot of the same tricks that we will be using with the cameras and same positioning to overlay it with the bigger game. And this will allow us to have very similar feeling where it will be exactly the same thing and exactly the same feeling between the game, because it's literally done in the same area. We do have the side characters that living in a game, got it. 2D characters living in a 3D world. We can see that world is 3D, characters are very flat. And this introduces a little bit of an issue sometimes. For example, if we are talking about running, we can create the proper line so it's not like that, but like this. And the shadow and everything looks good, right? Same with this guy. But if we just rotate, this shows us that the character is very flat, and this shows us a little bit of a gap here. We can start overlaying like 3D parts in the back that's gonna be hidden. This may make it better, but I think what we will end up doing is, as we move the camera, we also gonna move the light, so we are never lit like that. And in here it will be a little bit more curved to the back. But yeah, I think we'll need to come up with something else for this type of stuff, because I don't know, I don't want them to always be lit from forward and the shadows of the building moves as we're moving the camera. It's kind of ruins the immersion. When it comes to the type of the fights the game's gonna support, and here we are talking about the turn-based games, but we also want to introduce some of the faster-paced sections as well. When we are moving, we are spending the energy that is allowed for this round, and this includes a loss when we are moving around, even bigger loss when we're sprinting and jumping, and minor loss when we are moving the camera. So there is some pressure to make decisions and just not move around back and forth. And also this allow experienced players to use platforming to jump from place to place and even potentially bob from character to character in order to gain some more distance, because we will be reducing the points that you have for your movement only while you are actually holding the key. So if we, for example, if you jumped and you just continue to fly, you can stop holding the button and you can jump from the character and get even more distance, right? And there is also the zone where other character can stop you. So for example, if someone is standing out here, you want to get to him, but there is a bunny guarding here. If you go like that and you don't jump over, a bunny in somewhere in this area would be able to stop you and start the engagement with you. And you will be able to bypass it like that in case you know how to and you're confident in your timing because, for example, you jump too early, you are here, you're still in the bad zone, and bunny can take a get a go at you. And bunny is scary. One other thing that we want to do is to essentially implement the two versions of the game. In one version, we will be able to just interact with the character as a bots and speak with them and just explore what they're doing, maybe combined with something with a level builder, etc. But the main idea behind these games is to have some sort of a social D&D campaigns, and this is where we can basically spin up some box with text where it will be similar to the bunny and NDI situation, but it will be directly integrated inside the game where we will be able to say like, hey, this is me, Mario. Hey, bear, why are you so small? I'm big bunny and you're a tiny bear. Oh, you grew up. You grew up so fast. Those bears. This kind of situation is possible for us. And right now I'm not even having the character actually integrated in Unreal Engine, and it still looks like the bunny is standing on another roof, right? Yeah, we will be able to use NDI to combine both worlds and basically perform, record, and do the D&D campaigns where the characters will be able, well, where the players will be able to navigate like that, but essentially they will be able to come and have the real conversation with the characters. So as they are interacting with the world, it's more of like, hey, like you are actually speaking with whoever is out there. And we will be dealing both this kind of presence and kind of JRPG style where it's just a box that shows up, and we will stylize it in a way that like, hey, like this is a bunny that's speaking, and in case the character is not on screen, we'll still be able to see the whole range of emotions, because if we are gonna commit to developing all those animations, we might as well allow people to see them. And this will allow us even more usability of all those characters, because they will continue live in the D&D kind of like campaigns, and we will be able to just grab the people in and kind of play with that and try to interact together with different mechanics and play around and develop kind of a community engagement. And if the all goes absolutely great, we also want to have the level designer where other peoples will be able to just click around and add their art and reuse a lot of already done here to build up the new worlds, new levels, and connect it to here. And we will be able to have all this interconnected area. Yeah, this is what we are striving for. Let's get deeper into what goes into the game. All right, so then next part of it is to discuss what is really goes into the game and how it works. So the main ideas is that the characters are gonna have the limited movement during the battle engagements, and they will be calculated based on the speed that the characters have. So speed at the start is how fast we are starting from standing position. So the bear would be a little bit slower, and bunny would be able to rip right from the start very fast. Right now, when we're sprinting, it's automatically very fast, but we will be able to adjust that. Top speed would be also relevant because every time we have the turn, we have the meter that will be slowly depleted as we are moving. And because of that, for example, if our initial speed is not that great, but our top speed is a lot, and we want to spend all movement just to cover as much distance as possible, this should be largely beneficial to us. and we're gonna balance it in this exact way. So velocity is basically how fast we can go from 0 to 100. Energy discharge rate would be the meter itself. So based on our abilities and characteristics, we can have more and less movement on each round, and we will have the different options and different pace that we can use to spend it. And the sprint speed is the difference between the regular running and the sprint running, and so it will be quite significant. We will be even doing the different animation sets. Right now it's just a increasing speed of the same animation, but we will be basically using the all force for the bear, so it will be very fast, but it will be also very penalizing. So I want to balance it in a way that sprinting somewhere, if you're successful, is very well, but if you're just sprinting for no reason, you will just spend a lot of energy and you will not be happy about that. So yeah, like a lot of things to play with when it comes to controls, because when it comes to the platforming right now, it's a little bit hard to specifically aim. So we will see how can we make it less penalizing. But the characters itself is gonna allow us a lot of adjustments. The characters will have weight, strength, and height, and specifically weight divided by strength would affect how much energy we have for each movement in a turn-based round. Because, for example, if we carry a lot, then we basically have no movement. But if we are really strong, then the penalty is supposed to be not as severe. This is an idea. And the height is gonna affect the top speed because our legs are longer. This is how physics works in this world. Endurance is gonna affect how big our energy discharge rate bar is, and the reaction is gonna affect how much time do we have to choose our action during the close engagement. Body parts to attack. This is an important piece. We have a lot when it comes to verticality in this game. So if you are taller, you're in a better position because you can go for the head. If you're shorter, you need to spend more energy to reach critical points. But if you have the higher position, you're all of a sudden in a much better position that you were before, because you can always crit basically if you have the higher ground, which would allow people to play a lot based on the positioning, not just brute forcing the characters. Because if you have the tank, but tank has to run around everywhere, and there's like a whole bunch of mice out there just throwing projectiles, the tank's supposed to lose. Unless the platforming is, for example, very good. And now let's discuss how can character possibly protect himself from the damage. So what are we talking about here? We are talking about the close engagement when it comes to working with our characters. So in a game, as we are entering the turn-based mode, as we are getting to the certain distance between the characters, for example, Bear is taller, so he will have the bigger zone, or maybe based on characteristics, there will be the different zones that you can stop the movement of our characters and start engagement, close engagement. It means that we have the guy number 1, let's call him Bear, and we have guy number 2, in this case it's a bunny, and we are fighting with it. And we need to have multiple choice of different attacking actions that we can do. And we have the time to choose this attacking action. But it's not only about the limited time to choose what we want to do. As we are doing that, at the same time, our opponents also need to choose what to do. And if we are playing with a computer, it will be basically based on what's the difficulty level. But if we're playing with humans, this is very interesting because opponent have to choose the defensive move. And whoever chooses first, the animation is gonna start playing and the projectile is gonna come. But this basically means that this guy, if we did it way too early, have the time to react properly and escape most of the damage, for example. So we will be playing with this heavily, and this will be based on the reaction time. So the better your reaction time, the more time you have to fulfill that. And also you have to kind of study and understand the animations as well to properly react on the events. And this is where the skill level gonna come in. So we will be able to have the same engagement, but if you're much more experienced, you will be able to avoid a lot of damage, etc. But if you just don't do anything, I don't think it should be no damage at all, but I think it should be something that is like very, very heavily reduced. Because if we have no damage at all, it always feels very penalizing. So we're not gonna go here, but that's the idea behind reaction time. So we covered the fighting, we can engagement zone, moving zone, energy discharge from navigation. So energy discharge from navigation means that as we are moving and as we are rotating the camera, we are losing the movements, but this type of things is not. So if we're just moving the camera, we want to do something just to understand what's around us without moving around too much. I don't think it should be penalizing because, for example, if we stay here and we want to see what goes on directly underneath us, right? We cannot do it like this and even like that. But we can do things like that and it will not give us a lot of penalty, right? And we can do this as much as we want. This is the idea, just to have these platforming elements, but at the same time, be fair and give player an option to perform fine. Our character is supposed to have a certain set of abilities. First of all, we want to be able to pick up both characters and some objects. We want to throw them. And especially when it comes to the smaller characters like a criminal mouse, this guy is supposed to fly very far away. Action attack, regular attack. Basically, if we are not on an engagement and we want to just have some guaranteed smaller damage that is possible, as opposed to engagement, we want to have this type of attacks too, so the battle is not always tedious. Next thing is the way we can interact with the other characters in the world. Our relationship between us and characters are, we never met and we don't know who you are. We are aware about you, which means that either we are directly know about each other or you did something on a community level or something like this. And the character now aware that you are a thing that exists. And closely aware basically means personal interaction of some sort. That is like, hey, you're not just met up one time on the street. And intimate is everything that is very close, basically. When it comes to the attributes towards us, the different characters may be friendly towards us, which means they basically like us, they don't mind us, etc. In depth, maybe emotional depth or physical depth kind of situation. Romantic is when the characters are romantically involved. This is understandable, and that will allow a lot of effort because gonna be all different species. I don't know how it's gonna work. And neutral, I don't care about you. This is basically the type of relationship that you have with a store owner, for example. And hate is when you are not liked at all, and it may be both racist type of the situation and based on your performance in a game. And RNG is basically mood swings modifier, which basically no matter what is going on, there will be some random coefficient which will be different for different characters based on how much mood swings they do have and do prefer, and it will basically adjust quite a bit of things. And for some characters that are more calm, it would not be as taxing, but for the characters that will have a lot of emotional range, this coefficient will be higher to make things more spicy. It might be not that fair though, so we will be pick and choose who will have the high levels of that. The trigger is an attack on sight command, and this basically you piss someone off like royally, and it's always gonna attack you no matter what. How do we transition all that into some sort of a mass that we can use in a game? So we have a time since the first interaction, basically how much it passed since we first interacted with a character or he first heard about us. Also the number of interactions. So if we're interacting with someone on a regular basis, it will be one thing. If we have one long interaction, it is another thing. Fame also will adjust a lot of things, basically how well known we are in the community. Race attribute, which mainly means it's either positive or negative racism. Preferred trait bonus is basically if the characters care a lot about strengths and we are playing the bear, and then we're gonna be in much better position than if we are playing, I don't know, the mouse or intelligence-based builds. Hated trait penalty, same thing, but opposite. If you don't like the big guys and you're all about intelligence, right, you would not like bear, for example. Or at least you would not be as much into it as the characters potentially, depending from how much the hate level of the trait is defined. Hated trait, personal interaction bonus and community penalty bonus is also that whole area, basically fame adjustments. The currency out here, we don't want to have the direct money because we have a lot of monkeys that are gonna play the roles in computers. We're gonna have the bananas like the main rare kind of a currency that is required for them to be happy and have the bonuses in whatever they are doing. We will have the eels that gonna eel us. And also fishes are internet, so this is important, and the fishes are gonna be the food for a lot of these guys, well, that are carnivores especially. So the eels are gonna be the currency, and wine seeds. Why wine? Not a wine that we are drinking, the wine that is growing. And the lore of this world. Essentially, there is a special wine that is very customizable, allowed character to transform the world in a way where they went to this biotech route instead of technological development with the fire and electricity. We're gonna explore how this happens in the lore itself. But the wine seeds are gonna be basically the cheaper type of currency, and community task points would be important type of the currency to specifically interact with the community when it comes to the decisions that are gonna interact the whole community. So this is really the whole set of how things are gonna be organized. And yep, let's see how far we can push it. Some things are ready, some things are in development. So we will be concentrating more on the character sheets and work around that. So let's see how far we can push things. All right, cheers.